Hi, this is Danielle Paige, and welcome home to the Cosmic Body Podcast, a place where we talk about everything mind, body, soul, and stars so that you can remember your highest potential while navigating your human journey. And when you embody that, you begin to understand that everything is connected and you're more than just a human being. You're truly a cosmic body. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cosmic Body Podcast. I am so deeply excited for my guest today for many reasons. And one of them is she's currently my new business coach that I hired. So this is so special to me on so many levels. My beautiful, amazing, talented, intuitive guest is Jessica Zweig. She is the founder of a multi-million-dollar business, best-selling author of Be, and her new book, The Light Work, Reclaim Your Feminine Power, Live Your Cosmic Truth, and Illuminate the World, is coming out on August 6th, and we're going to be talking about that today. So thank you for being here, and welcome to the podcast.
Danielle, the honor is mine, sister, to call you a friend, to call you a client, to call you a soul sister, and to be on your podcast is such an honor. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So as many people can see, my podcast is coming back, but I've been very specific that I really only want to talk to people that I genuinely want to talk to. And listen, there's a million talented people out there, but there's only one of me. So I'm going to be very selective. So you are someone that I want to ask deeper questions to, and I want the world to understand about you. So let's just start back first. Tell me a little bit about your background, what led you here. I love people's stories because we don't know when we walk by someone, right, what they have been through, what led them to this moment. So talk to us a little bit about what led you here.
So I'll start with the fact that I was definitely born a starseed, came into this life not feeling like I belonged. I struggled a lot in childhood, middle school, high school. My point is I was never a cool girl. I was bullied. I had a lot of trauma. Boys were mean to me. Girls were mean to me. I found a safe space in the theater. I became like a thespian and, lost myself in the artist community.
Yeah.
Went to college for acting, graduated as an actress, struggled through that career, did a lot of great work, but you live in LA, you get it. It's a very narcissistic lifestyle. And I was definitely deep in the body dysmorphic, like have to look a certain way, was very abusive towards my body for many years, dated some toxic men, like was really just finding myself in my 20s. And then stumbled into entrepreneurship quite accidentally. I was really into food and I loved fashion, and I was, girl about town, loved going out, and I wanted a resource online to like find out where to go, and it didn't exist. So I created it, started my first business. It was an online magazine.
Amazing.
Ran that for 7 years. Definitely my real life MBA, basically financially failed at that business, even though it was critically successful. Literally went broke, bottomed out financially from that business at the age of 33, had to ask my parents to help me pay my phone bill. It was like a rock bottom moment. And that really inspired a deep spiritual journey to go down the path of like personal growth and really finding my true authentic self amidst sort of the buzz that came from my magazine. Cause like I was saying, I wasn't cool, but all of a sudden in my late 20s, I was this cool girl because I was running this big popular online lifestyle magazine for women. And I really had to reckon with my ego in that ending of that business. And that's what inspired me to start Simply Be Agency, my company that I ran for another 7 years and ultimately sold a few months ago. And it's funny, like I started making all this money, right? Like I went broke and then Simply Be started, and it kicked into a 7-figure business within a year, and then multi 7 figures, and hired a team, got my first book deal, sold a massively #1 best-selling book, won a bunch of awards, got all the press, started a podcast. And while I won in that world, I realized, 7 years, 7 years in, that I wasn't really like all of a sudden in abundance, but I was really truly running from scarcity. That left a trauma response in my body going broke.
Yeah.
And I really got hooked on like the dopamine hit of success.
Yeah.
And it all led to basically a massive crash and burn out in 2022. The year 2022 was the darkest, hardest year of my life. And I'd love to actually have you look at my chart one of these days and tell me what
I
was
would
actually going on
love
in the
to
stars.
see. Yeah, I would love to see your transits.
Because that was a transit year for sure. And
Yeah,
I was diagnosed with situational depression, like didn't leave my house for a few months. Like I was really physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually depleted from building this business and sprinting up a mountain and pushing my body and overriding my nervous system and being super unconscious
yeah,
to my wounding, frankly, around,
yeah,
you know, success and the sort of validation I was getting from it. And so very serendipitously, at the end of 22, I had planned a trip to Egypt about 9 months before. You know, I wasn't anticipating I was going to feel as cashed as I did getting onto that plane to Cairo in November of 22. I literally wanted to burn my whole business down. I wanted to like fire my team. I was the most rageful bitch to my husband. I was like the darkest I had ever
yeah.
been in my life. And
You were
I
suffering.
I was so suffering.
Yeah.
And you know, babe, you've been to Egypt, that country.
Mm.
Can I swear in your podcast?
You can say whatever
Okay.
you want.
I say that Egypt fucks up your life, like it
Yeah.
in the best, most powerful way.
Yep.
And I had a full on death in that country, like an ego dissolution, identity. Like the girl that got on that plane
Yeah.
2 weeks later did not come back with me. Like I left her there and someone new came home. And it was in that homecoming that I
Mhm.
really started to look at my body and how I was treating it, and that I had to really embody my feminine power, which was different than I thought it was. I had so much, I like to say, like, I won in the matrix, like, I figured it out
Yeah.
and played the game of the masculine, patriarchal, like, toxic hustle.
Hmm.
And I just physically on in every cell of my body couldn't go back to that. It was like a
Yeah.
true inability to operate that way.
Yeah.
And in the year 23, I slowed down, like really slowed down, got into like my slow life era, if you will. Um, Out of the pure passion of my soul, decided to host a couple women's retreats because they were fun for me. You were at one of them. And they were hugely successful. And I started seeing all of these women transform in front of my eyes because of these containers I was creating. I got a lot of clients out of those retreats because they wanted to extend working with me. Right around that same time, I got a call from Hawk Media, like wanting to buy my company. And I started to really explore what I would do next. And oh, by the way, in the year 2023, I got a book deal for the light work.
Right.
And I channeled this book in 3 months. Like I wrote the whole book in 3 months. Like it typically takes like 6, 9 months, 12 months to write a
Yeah.
book. And it just poured through me. And I found my true message in the world. And it's for women who are, you know, sisters, women like me, powerful, successful, ambitious, spiritual women who are, I think, feeling alone in the darkness. And I really wanted to be a guide and a teacher, and as well as a true sister. I don't really feel like there's any hierarchy that exists. It's all an illusion. Like no one is better than you. No one knows more than you. We're all just figuring it out. But to really walk hand in hand with women through all the areas of their life that they're struggling with beyond their business, because we're women, it's all connected. And so
Yep.
I wanted to write a book really opening up about my stories in romantic relationships to female friendships to body image and body dysmorphia to our emotional power, our personal power, how we relate to our careers and the energy of money and all of the things that make us us. And so this book came from this very dark place as a light for myself, and I'm really really excited to share it with the world. So that's a hybrid version of my story, but it's led me here, and I think we're all on our divine perfect timelines, and I'm excited to be here.
Wow. You said so many things that were intriguing, and I have lots of questions in my head running. And the first thing I want to say is, or ask, you wrote this so quickly.
Yeah.
So how long after Egypt, right? I remember us, we knew each other, but not that well.
Mhm.
But I remember you sending me some DMs. I sent you some DMs because it
Yes.
was like Egypt, and I think I knew someone else on your trip. It's just chit chatting, and I saw what you were going through.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, oh yeah, just awakening, like been there, done that, like 50,000 times, right? The level that came through you
Yeah.
is on a whole other level because you were in Egypt.
Yes.
So, one, it's incredible that it happened so quickly and you wrote the book because it channeled through you. So, talk to us about the information and light, because you would not have been able to write this book that quickly if it didn't come pouring and channeling through you, right? Which is so incredible because awakenings are hard and they slam you down.
They slam you.
So you were able to be slammed down and also then be like, okay, I'm going to write this book,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
pretty impressive. So talk to me about all that and like what came through in Egypt.
So I had the concept for this book baked a year before. And because I had hit burnout, I had to put it on the shelf. I didn't have any energy, babe. You know what it goes into writing a proposal. So I was
Yep.
like, I'm gonna heal my nervous system. I'm gonna figure out what I'm doing with my business.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just focus on my 100-hour schedule. Like had no capacity for it, but the
Yeah.
concept was there. It was a shell of an idea of the book. I knew I was going to call it the light something. And when I went to Egypt, which I'll explain, I came home and I knew exactly what the book was going to say.
Mhm.
I got the book deal literally a month later after Egypt. My publisher was so encouraging for me to really own my
Oh,
message,
beautiful.
talking about Egyptian codes, the goddess medicine, the Pleiadians. He's like, go deep, do it. And I really feel like, honestly, Danielle, and I think you'll figure this out when you go on your book journey, because it does channel through you. You are the vessel. And I'm going back and I'm reading this and I'm like, I wrote this.
Right? I've already said that. I'm like, damn, this is good. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wrote that part. When did I write this?
Who came up with that? How did I even know to
Yes,
say that?
yes, yes,
It's like
yes.
my higher self wrote it, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
And I
It's
went
so
to
true.
Egypt, and I know you understand because you've been there, and it's, and my point in the book is like, this book isn't here to convince you to go buy a plane ticket, like to go there.
Yeah.
Like my book is here to show you have this capacity in your hands right now in this moment if you choose it. But Egypt, I'll just say this: the first morning I went, we got there, we got up at 4 a.m. We went to the Sphinx. We had private access. We got to touch it. I went up to it. I closed my eyes. I put my hands on it. And I literally immediately heard spirit, all these voices. It was like ancient galactic family members saying, literally, they said, we're so happy you're here. We have been waiting for
That's
you.
exactly what I heard too. Exactly.
Yes.
Welcome back. We've been waiting for you.
Welcome back.
It is. I have so much to say. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
no,
you.
you're fine.
I'm so excited.
Uh-huh. I love talking about Egypt. I mean, it's like my favorite topic.
Yeah.
And this is wild. So we were in the like dusk, like it was sun was just
Yeah.
rising, and my friend Laura was like 20 feet away taking a picture of the Sphinx. She didn't even see me there. The second she took that picture was the same second moment that I was my hands were against it and my eyes were closed and I was
Mm.
hearing that message. She walks up to me like 2 minutes later. She's like, Jessica, look at this picture I just took. You're in it. And there's a photo of me. I'm going to frame it one day
Yes.
with a huge white beam of light coming into my back.
Oh.
That was morning one. Like
I remember you're like, we just got here. You got sick. You
I
got
got,
blasted open. I was like, oh,
uh-huh. Yeah,
she's in for this.
yeah. I was getting really sick because I was jet lagged. I was burnt out. I actually tapped out of the second day's like itinerary because I needed to sleep. And in
Yeah.
that 14-hour sleep, I had a visitation from Sekhmet, like a full on visitation from her. And she chewed me up. I sweat my sheets. I coughed, choked. My throat was on fire. Like she is the goddess of war and healing. And she doesn't war to war. She wars to heal. She gets things back into right relationship. And she accelerated my sickness in the middle of the night. And by the time I woke up 14 hours later, I was fine.
Mm.
And in each and every, because it's a spiritual pilgrimage. I mean, you're not on
Yep.
vacation. You get up early, you have wild wake up calls. You're going through these temples that are alive, that are, encoded, and
Yep.
you enter these spaces, and your body, your cells, your DNA, it activates you. You
Hmm.
have these wild experiences, like sober, but it feels like
Yep.
you're on some sort of medicine journey, but you're
Yep.
sober. And the most significant visit was Hathor, Dendera.
Yep.
And
I remember
Hathor,
the ceiling
and the
specifically
ceilings are
with the
insane.
zodiac.
Exactly. The alcoves, the underground tunnels, there's these music chambers you climb up ladders to get
Mhm.
into. And
Yep.
I know that that's so, from what I was told by our guides, because we were taken by like these, Egyptian mystics who are not there to teach you the historical, our academic side, but like the codes and the
Yeah.
spiritual connection to galactic stargates, like those were who was guiding us.
Yep.
And our tourism guide told us that Hathor is the goddess of frequency. She's the goddess of bliss. She's the goddess of pleasure and play. And the last 5 years building my agency, girl, I had no bliss, no pleasure, no play, no fun. It was all work. And I had forgotten like the kind of whole point of the human experience.
Yes.
And in that temple, I climbed up one of those ladders by myself. I went into one of those music chambers.
Hmm.
I felt an immediate call to put my whole body against the wall. I closed my eyes and I was struck by white lightning. Literally, blinding white light hit my body. And I started to expand my auric field beyond the temple, beyond Egypt, beyond the planet. I was fully wide open. And I started hearing messages. And I'm pretty clairaudient. I'm pretty connected and can commune, but I had never had that direct, specific voices
Hmm.
speaking to me. And I knew who they were. I believe they were the Pleiadians, and they were speaking in chorus at certain times. They were clamoring over each other to get my attention. It was like they were like, she's open, let's get it all in. Let's tell her everything she needs to know right now.
Mm.
And it was this message of saying, you're so lucky to be in a human body. And you're not only in a human body, you're in a female body.
Yep.
And you are a piece of us. You are one of the goddess. You're one with the goddess.
Mm.
And the feminine frequency is back. It's here. It's been here, but it's been repressed, oppressed, and
Yes.
forgotten. And you need to be a leader of this message to bring to more women, to not only be a leader to them, because that's not my jam, to show women that they're the leaders of this as well. Like we're all
Yes.
the leaders of it.
Yes.
And so I died in that temple. Like literally, I walked out fully different than I was 2 hours later, earlier. Long story short, I got back to my hotel. I started shaking. I was freezing. I got super sick. I couldn't move. Megan, my best friend, who she was my roommate. She got me water. She covered me in blankets, towels. I was so cold and like shaking. I was in so much pain. This was 3 hours after that white lightning had hit my body. She left the room. She went to dinner. I'm lying there, can barely breathe. And I have this inclination to hum. I'm like, just start humming because the vibration will help you calm
Yes.
your body. So I start humming, and I have another conscious thought. It's like, it's not strong enough. Open your mouth and start moaning, like let the sound out. So then I start doing that like a sick person lying in bed, like, like you are when you're sick. And the second I started doing that, I started speaking. I started channeling like a language. And it was a language I didn't know, but it was a language I knew. It was light language.
Hmm.
I was speaking in tongues, basically, is what it sounds like, but like it's very pure and symphonic and sweet.
Hmm.
And my 3D brain was like, this is fucking weird. What is
Yes.
happening to me? And
It's always the brain.
and I literally was like, just get out of the way and like let this happen. And I lied in bed for hours channeling light language, and my whole system recalibrated, something I felt was upgrading, moving, clearing. And I fell asleep. And the last thing I want to share about this story, because this was really the unlock.
Yep.
The next morning, I woke up, went down to the breakfast hall where our group was, and I went to my Egyptian mystics. They were sitting at this table by themselves eating. Like the whole group was by them off on the other side of the restaurant. And I was like, I need to tell them what just happened to me yesterday. And I go and I share the story. Like I blurb it out. I'm like, you guys, this is what happened. The light language, the Hathor, the activation, the voices, like what the heck? Can you help me make sense of this? They didn't even look at me. They looked at each other and they said, one of them said to the other verbatim, I'll never forget this moment. He said, this is why people come to Egypt, so that they can remember and then they can go make the world a better place. This sage mystic said this.
Full body chills, like full body right now.
And that's my why, like behind this book. Like the whole message is for women to remember how powerful and needed and beautiful and blessed we are to be here, and to shift this planet into a more loving, harmonic, accepting, inclusive, peaceful place to be. And I think women need to be at the helm of that, you know?
Oof. Okay, we're definitely not getting off the subject of Egypt just yet because this is powerful. So thank you for sharing that, because that's very intimate. That was your journey. That's nobody can fully understand what that felt like except
Yeah.
you, because you were there.
Yeah.
And I want to say, I know there's a lot of listeners that might be like, well, I went to Egypt and this didn't happen, or this is not true, or whatever.
Yeah.
I want people just to open up their mind and understand that we all have different timelines. We all have different journeys.
Thank you.
Egypt is a portal. I went in 2016. I was still on my journey. I was like doing astrology, but I did not have the awareness of so many things, even in the galactic realm, that I do now. And I have to say, I went there just really like naive. Oh, I want to go to Egypt. It was a spiritual journey, of course, as well. Beautiful. But I was just like, I want to go to Egypt. Blasted open. That's where I started seeing aliens, right? I didn't actually know much about aliens before this. So why am I sharing that? I just want people to understand that when you were speaking those words, I felt your experience. And that when you said about the clinging, clanging, the noise, I've had a similar situation where I felt like someone was like opening drawers and moving stuff and all this. So like that brought me back to that situation where it's like, it's noisy. Almost, you hear all these, it's like chaotic, right? I just want to affirm what you were saying. Egypt is a powerful portal. It does open you up, to whatever level. I'm ready to go back, right? We should go back together. That would be amazing. And I love what you said about the body, how they specifically showed you or talked to you or instilled in you about how lucky and how grateful we are. That's part of why this podcast is called Cosmic Body. When I went through my health journey, I understood how we were more than this physical body, how we are the stars, we are everything. So I would love to dive a little bit deeper into anything that you want to share, anything that's in your book about that, because I think that is so important for people to understand, because we're in our head all the time. Like we forget we have bodies.
Yes. So I have a whole chapter in my book called Body, Your Sacred Vessel. And it's probably my favorite chapter in the whole book because I think it all starts with the body.
Yeah.
And I open up about my eating disorders, my body dysmorphia. I was an actress. Like I said, I was told for a decade to lose weight. I was obsessed with dieting and working out and supplementation and starvation and binging, purging. Like I really go there. And then in my 30s came my autoimmune disorder after I had sort of healed that and was chronically sick for 10 years, hooked on antibiotics and steroids, and had surgery, and Western medicine just absolutely failed me.
Yep.
I know you have the same exact experience in your own way, in your own journey there. And I say in the book, I'm like, look, I'm not here to even And I talk about like what social media is doing and like Kim Kardashian aspirations and, bone broth diets and supplementations and healthier workouts and mineralization and syncing your period. Like I talk briefly about it, but what I'm really here to talk about is that our bodies are multidimensional
Mm.
vessels. They are literally technology.
Yep.
And we have dormant DNA that are our light codes that have the ability, they're light encoded filaments. We're literally made of light. We're like NASA science says we're made of stardust. Like, don't take it from Danielle and I. Go study like what NASA says. It's factual, it's science. And we have become so disempowered and we surrender our sovereignty to doctors, to social media, to diet culture, to comparison, because we're asleep to how magnificent self-generated healing machines we actually are.
Yes.
And that is a radical act of self-empowerment, to remember that your body is sacred technology. And there are all these ways we can turn on those light codes in our body that are far more gentle, in fact, far more
Mm.
harmonic to Gaia, that allow us to fully understand the female anatomy. Like I talk about yoni steaming and like, how we get connected to Gaia in our systems through just taking a walk through nature, through breath work, through ecstatic dance, like really treasuring the body is the foundation to becoming what I call a light worker, because we're made of light and we're so missing the point by focusing on beauty and standards and our physical sickness or our physical health. Like we're cosmic, like you say, we're literally made of light.
Yeah.
And so in order, I think, to truly become sovereign light beings, we have to get back into our bodies and honor our bodies and turn on our bodies in a way that you're not going to read in a diet book or find on social media, that you're actually only going to find within your heart and your soul. And that is foundational and one of the best life lessons I've had. And I just, really want to remind women, especially because we've been so duped and like roofied by impossible standard of what it should look like and feel like to be in a woman's body to begin with.
Yeah.
And I talk about like, if you actually find the first depiction of the female body ever found on this planet, was the Alcurlian goddess.
It was like
Voluptuous. She
yeah.
was the mother. She birthed life. She creates, we fucking create the universe in
Mhm.
our womb. You're just look down at it. You create the universe right there. She was celebrated. We were celebrated for that power, not having anything to do with aesthetics.
Mhm.
And I just really want to bring women back to that. And I talk about the chakras in that chapter and just how to use those systems, energy systems in our bodies to sort of map what's going on in our lives emotionally and physically, as just what needs our attention and love, not our fixing, but our attention and our love. And it's a whole new way of, I think, looking at our bodies when we recognize they're actually like galactic technology.
I love that you call it technology because that's exactly what it is. We are magnificent beings. It's everything you said. I love this so much. And it was so interesting. Right before this podcast, I was in the kitchen, and now this makes sense. So I started channeling some information, but it actually applied to this conversation, because there's no past, present, future. It's just information, and it's information in your field because it's in the book that you wrote, which is your field. So it was interesting because I got this download, and how they happen so quickly, and so sometimes it's hard to explain, like put them in words. But the message was, you're trying to fit into societal standards when your beauty is magnificent. And I was like, I'm in the kitchen and I'm like, God damn, that was profound. But it was
And
about
true.
this. It was about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they were like talking about me for sure, but it was like a collective message.
Yes.
Like definitely, me, because I've tried to, I wrestled with my body as well. I had eating disorder in my 20s as well. But it was a collective message, which I feel like I was just picking up from your field,
Yeah.
really. And that's it's powerful that you just talked about that.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's so needed because I know the people who are listening, I think all of us can relate to that and have forgotten just how magnificent. It's not a word you would ever, I think the average person walks down the street explaining how they
Yeah.
feel about their bodies or what their bodies are.
Yeah.
That word magnificent.
Yeah.
It's it's wild what the body can do and what the body is. And I overrid that. I was so unconscious to it, forget the body dysmorphia, the autoimmune. That's what led to my most darkest night of the soul was being out of my body.
Hmm. I actually have some questions about that. I did a whole episode on my eating disorder because I wanted to share with people. And since you talked about you had it too,
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we talk about this because there's a lot of spiritual people that struggle with it. And
Mm.
I know for me, it's that I didn't even know how to be in a body because it was so dense and I was
Yeah.
uncomfortable with it.
Yes.
So I was trying to escape it, but I had no awareness as a kid, right? This was so dense. And then the times I would overeat, it was because I was trying to ground because I was so anxious because of all the information, but I had, again, no awareness.
Yeah.
So could you, and then I had to learn that, I went to an eating disorder center for a while. And this was before my awakening, but I started learning, oh, I would do this when I had feelings that I was shoving down. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I was feeling anything. Right. So I had to really learn like this was an indication for me that I'm feeling something and I'm scared. Like it was so suppressed that I didn't even know. Right.
Yeah.
So because we're talking about your book, the light work and the body, is there anything you can share that you've learned from your journey when you had an eating disorder that would be helpful for people listening? Because I know there's tons of people listening that are struggling, but not everyone's going to come out and publicly say this, so they don't have to. They could be in their house listening, and I want to provide some help to them.
Yeah. So I was born into a short, curvy body that loved carbs. Like
Short, you're taller than me. I would kill for your height.
I'm 5'4.5". You're shorter than that, but that's still pretty short. And I'm Jewish, and my grandmother would stuff food. Like we
Yeah,
eat. It's a cultural thing. And I loved like Starbucks cinnamon scones like before high school every morning with my frappuccino. Like I didn't really know.
yeah.
And then I went to college and I gained the freshman 30. Wasn't the
Yes,
Yep.
it
Uh,
happened too.
uh-huh. Beer, pizza, like
Yep.
just take out frozen pizza, frozen food. And then I graduated college and I wanted to become an actress. And
Mhm.
I got a very coveted meeting with one of the biggest commercial directors in the city of Chicago at the time for like an audition. And I was 23 years old. And that one meeting where he told me, he didn't even ask me my name. He just actually, I sat down in his chair. He told me to stand right back up. He's like, turn around, looked at my body. He's like, okay, sit back down. He said, you want to be an actress? You're going to need, he goes, how much do you weigh? It was literally his first question. I said, I don't know. He said, well, what size are you? I said, I'm a 6, maybe an 8. He goes, all right, well, you're going to need to be a size 2 if you want to be an actress, and a size 0, preferably if you ever want to be on camera.
Mm.
And that one conversation was the beginning of my entire adult life in the world, like as a
Yeah.
woman. And that sent me on 10 years of obsession with diet, working out. I got so thin after that. I lost so much weight. I didn't bleed for 2 years. My period didn't come
Mm.
because I was so underweight.
Yeah.
And I really think like looking back on that time in my life, I just send that girl so much love and compassion. And she was really just trying to figure out her life, let alone how her body fit into the world. And when I quit acting and I started a food blog, I was like, this feels so good to eat. And I started like nourishing myself and gained weight and then started getting really sick. And the sickness was from stress, and the sickness
Yeah.
was from honestly inflammation and drinking a lot. And it wasn't until I met with a healer who read my body, and she said to me something that changed my life, and it's probably very basic to us, but at the time it was revelatory.
Yeah.
She said, you are your own healer. You don't need me. And she guided me through being aware of my diet and what I was putting in my body as medicine. And, I kind of tipped the scale a little further, like the other direction. I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut out gluten. I'm going to cut out dairy and I'm going to cut out meat and I'm going to cut out sugar and I'm going to stop drinking. And like, I did that for a while and I was plant-based and I became sober, frankly, because I had candida and I was drinking wine and that was contributing to my autoimmune. So I cut out alcohol, not because I was righteous, but because I just wanted to stop feeling like shit.
Yeah.
And I actually just incorporated meat again in the last year and, you know, eat more fat and salt and, healthy sugar in a way that I didn't think was right for a few years. And frankly, I feel like I've built a beautiful relationship with food, with movement. I I feel like I can't tell any one person like what's right for them because I think you need to go on your own journey to figure
Yes.
out what's right for you.
Yep.
Um, but one of the biggest unlocks was looking at food as a tool for true nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever, if you're plant-based, if you're carnivore, it doesn't matter, but it's nourishment for your cells, for your
Yeah.
life force, for your vitality. And on the working out side, frankly, I used to take Barry's boot camp, Soul Cycle, just marathon running. I did it all. Now I walk. Like I walk and I'll do like gentle Pilates a few times a week. And I've never felt more like healthy and it just helped my nervous system. Like I think the
Mm-hmm.
nervous system health is more important than your weight or physical health. It's all connected back to that. And if
But you'll
you're
actually lose more weight when your nervous system. So it's
exactly,
an oxymoron.
exactly. And that took me a real roundabout way
Yeah.
to figure out. And now that I focus on nervous system healing, grounding, I have my PEMF mat, I drink my minerals. Like to me, that's more important than calories will ever be.
Yes. 1,000%.
Yeah. And I honor
Mm.
my body as my temple
Yes.
and it's how I love my body, talk to my body, treat my body. Am I perfect every day? No, I have days where I'm like, ugh, I hate the way I look in this shirt, or like I shouldn't have eaten that much or whatever. Like we have those, we're women, we're human, we're in this 3D reality. It's deeply etched programming, but it's a commitment every day
Yes.
to work through and remember, the whole gift it is to be in this body and how to really honor it with all of the things, food, medicine, thought, people, what we ingest in our minds. Like it all matters to our nervous systems and
It's all connected.
it's all connected.
And I
Have the
can't
fun.
wait for the world to truly understand that concept. When we do, we will move mountains. We will move dimensions. We will move realities. We will shift consciousness. We will move into frequencies that we're not existing in now.
Yeah. And I know your audience probably knows this, but I'll just say this and I feel like I can on your show.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to call out and why I wrote a chapter about body and why I love we're having this conversation. If you're a spiritual person, if you're on the path, if you're doing this work and you are probably treating your body well to some degree and you're not eating shit. And I think the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry, here's my thesis. It's mine, take it or leave it. That is an industry, those are industries that are connected that profit trillions of dollars a year on two things: our sickness and our ignorance.
Yep.
We're consuming garbage and being numbed down so that we can be controlled. Now this is my conspiracy coming out, but I don't care.
Not even a conspiracy.
Right? Like it's the matrix trying to control the human species so we follow what they say and we're sheep and we stay in line. So what you just said about how different the world is going to be when we wake up and we empower ourselves and become sovereign, like this world is completely going to shift. That's what's happening right now. Like we're creating a new earth and it starts in our bodies. If we are sick, we are weak. And if we're weak, we can be controlled. And it's time to wake the fuck up.
Woo! I'm glad you added that in. Listen, there's a lot of people that are ready for that, and then there's people that don't want to hear that message, and that's okay. and maybe they'll come back when they are. I've seen that in 2020 when some people followed me. They did
Yes.
not want to hear what I had to say,
No.
and they definitely yelled and screamed and, you know, left bad reviews. And listen, I'm not trying to make money off this, so you can leave a bad review. It doesn't affect me, right? It just doesn't affect me. But then a lot of people came back and said, I see what you're saying now. I'm now ready. So it's like, you know what? Just when people are ready, they're going to hear the message.
Right.
They're going to hear it.
They're going to hear it. And I loved that. I've been following you for years before 2020. Like we had mutual connections and you were in
Yeah.
my orbit. But during that time, Danielle, I grew to love you even more
Thank
and
you.
respect you. And it wasn't like you were being a revolutionist or a radical. You were just speaking truth.
That's
And
exactly it.
yeah, and people had a big reaction to it. And you being one of those voices, I can't tell you how many people of that moment that used their voice have now had so many people come back and say, I'm sorry, you were right.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you. And it's not about I'm right. It's just more like when
Right.
people are ready to hear it, you know? So, and that's beautiful on this journey. You know, in 2017, about I got this download very clearly in meditation, and I felt they put it in my body of how birth control pill was suppressing women and our power. I shared that, and let me tell you, the world was not ready for that. But now
Now they
you're
are.
allowed to talk about it because
Right.
everyone's like on that train, which is fine and great. But it's just the whole point of what you're saying, and because your book has some radical
Yes.
statements in there if someone's not open to this yet. So I just encourage you, listen, if something feels okay, I don't know what this feels new to me, just either just maybe put it to the side right now, or maybe come back to it, or maybe just sit with it and ask yourself if you're ready to question. Because I do feel like when they read your book, it's going to activate and it's going to awaken. And that's the whole point of this. So if it feels foreign at first, be okay that it feels foreign, right?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I just, I got my first, like, they sent me this, like, I'm holding it in my hand for the
Yeah,
first
I
time
can't wait to get it.
and I'm reading it because I'm like, oh, I should read my own book. And then super
Because I
fun.
channeled it.
Like,
I
right.
wasn't there.
I should read what she said.
Yeah.
And I was reading it the other day and I was like, I was feeling anxiety, like as the author, because what I'm putting out there is so unapologetic and it is so, I think, radical in a certain way. Like, I was a CEO of a very big company and I was dealing with
Right.
like CEOs of other bigger
Yep.
companies. And in the first chapter, I'm talking about extraterrestrials, like, and like, I'm like, well, this is going to be new for people.
Yeah.
And I also feel like when someone once said, like, when you're about to share something, whether it's an Instagram post or a podcast or a blog, like, let alone a book, and it brings up a bit of anxiety or fear of you being
Mhm.
like exposed and seen,
Yeah.
it's good. Like, post it. It'll resonate. And I'm very clear that there are going to be certain people that have strong reactions to this book, both
Yes.
positively and negatively. And I am standing in it. It's my message. If you disagree with me, then write your own book and like have
That's exactly it. And the reality is, and this is not a slam to people. The reality is that most people don't have the courage to do what you did. What I'm saying, they don't have the courage, but it's a lot easier to sit there and insult and throw darts, right? And all that does is make it harder on your soul journey.
exactly, exactly.
So I am so excited for people to get activated with your book.
Thank you.
And yeah, I brought that up because I know it's going to activate. Actually, you talk about turning on the light switch.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because my audience who listened to my first episode of My Awakening when I was 30 years old, they told me to turn the switch on. I did automatic writing and I literally went around the house turning light switches on because I did not even understand what they meant. I mean, this was at the beginning of my awakening. I'm like looking at the lamps upside, like looking underneath the shade, you know?
Yeah.
So
That's so
talk to
funny.
us about activating your light switch. What does that mean for you?
So I know I've heard you talk about light a lot in your work. As I define light and how I studied light, which was really through the lens of the Pleiadian teachings. I was told I was Pleiadian in a reading many years ago. I was like, I thought the woman had 3 heads. I was like, what are you talking about? Pleiadia who's? What the fuck? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be with this. This might be, I'm going to sit with it. It felt real in my body.
Mhm.
And then I went down the path of studying them. And it was one of the first things I learned in understanding their teachings is that light is a synonym for information. That's it. It's light is information. Darkness is lack of information. Darkness isn't evil. Darkness becomes evil when we ignore it, suppress it, deny it, numb it, and it putrefies and gets toxic, right? But darkness is really its own it manifests itself in the everyday woman as like insecurity, jealousy, competitiveness, gossip,
Yeah,
like, and that's not the truth. That's not love. Like the
exactly.
building block of this universe is love. And
Hmm.
anything that is not love is not the truth. Truth with a capital T. And so when we turn on the light switch to our own inner darkness, which we have to move through, it's our way shower. We need polarity to grow. We are able to see the truth of who we really are, which is powerful, worthy,
Mhm.
sovereign,
Yes.
needed, co-creators of this reality. And the light switch is a metaphor for like stop being like step out of victim consciousness, stop being asleep, stop listening to what everyone else is telling you. Let's taking in everyone else's feedback information, even like what your biggest mentors guru, like you have the answers. It's literally in your cells. What we were saying before, you are the light.
Yeah.
But we've been asleep and disempowered for so many reasons, some of which we've talked about today with food, pharma, numbing, like all of it.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot. And this is why it's called the light work, because it's
Mm.
work. It's not about a spiritual bypass, love and light. Let's just always high positive vibes and gratitude is the attitude, like barf. Like it's hard to be here in this human experience. And we've got to journey through the dark to find the light. And when we turn on the light switch, we don't just change our own lives. We help to change the world. I really believe it's an evolutionary imperative as much as it is a personal imperative to do this work.
I love, love, love how you explained. And I just want to say that I could have really used this book
Mm.
at 30. So I know there are countless people that are just going through their awakening or confused, don't know where, and are going to pick up this book. Excuse me, pick up this book and see it almost as like a Bible, right? As a guide to bring them back to self, because we're not taught this,
No, we're
right?
not.
We just have to gather. And that's where we go. You know, some people do plant medicine ceremonies. I know you talked about that a lot, or you get this through going to Egypt, you get this through a meditation or dream or what have you. But what a beautiful gift that you're helping shorten the steps for
Thank
people.
you. Thank you.
I mean, I would have not turned on every light switch in the house.
You.
It's the funniest thing I've ever heard of. I had
That's
no
really,
idea.
I can see you doing that.
I know, I literally was like, and I was so like into it. I was like, okay, I'm going to find it. What light switch is this?
That's amazing. Yeah, no, and thank you for that reflection. I wanted this
Yeah.
book to be a guidebook, like a true roadmap on
Yes,
how to
that's how I
find
see it.
back to yourself. I call it a cosmic homecoming. Like we can search
Mhm.
and outsource and ascend, transcend, but like it's all within you. It's all
Yeah.
right here. You don't have to look far.
I want to wrap up with this question that I know there's a lot here, but I think this is so important to kind of tie this together of why are we doing the light work in the first place? It's about the light worker's mission.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? Anything in the book? And I feel like this in the future light section, or
Yeah.
is this? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you're going to be speaking about future light at my event. So we'll talk about that in a second.
yeah.
So, chapter 9 in the book is called Mission, Your Creation, Your Calling, Your Cause. And this is one of my favorite chapters because I get to go super galactic and talk about, the extraterrestrial nature of our DNA.
I just, by the way, when you say that, like, I can't explain, and this is why we're friends. Like, I feel the most peace in my heart when you just said those words. It makes me,
Same.
I feel like I'm home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I love this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And so, you know, with that resonance, we come to earth, we live these lives, we go to college, we work these jobs, we might start a business, start a family. And there's all of this narrative around like, find your purpose. Like, what's your purpose here? And I've never really loved that word, frankly. I feel like it's limited. I feel like there's a sense of absolutism to that. If you don't find your purpose, are you screwed? Like,
Mhm.
there's sort of this idea that purpose is this thing outside of you, that this thing you got to find. And I'm somewhat turning that concept on its head in this chapter and really allowing people to see that, yeah, purpose might be something that you do, that you express, but your mission is why you are.
Mhm.
And you came here incarnated in this little body called you for a microcosm of time against the infinite. Like, literally, it's a grain of sand in the full ocean's like blip.
A dot.
Dot. Like 80, 90 years if we're lucky. That's like no time.
Yeah.
Truly. And you weren't put here for fun, for an accident, for coincidence. You were put here for a reason. You were assigned an assignment. You're on a mission here. And your mission is based upon your own unique blueprint, your own unique story, your own unique failures and heartbreaks and lessons and triumphs. And so I kind of created this framework where it's the shape of a triangle and it's creation. So what it is you're here to create in the world. It could be a business. It could be multiple businesses. It could be a book. It could be a conference. It could be a series of corporate jobs that you're proud of. Like, what is your creation? We all live in human bodies. We got to create things to live. But your calling is really that deeper soul why. What would you do if you didn't even get paid for it? Like, what? And for some people, those two things are conjoined, which is a blessing. But there are lots of people that keep them separate. Like, one of my dearest friends is a news anchor, and she lives in this very like, you know, polished world, but she's super spiritual and all about astrology and mysticism. And that's her calling. And she devotes her entire life outside of her career to that calling.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is your cause. Like, what are you going to leave behind you? Like, what is the legacy of your lifetime? What is the true reason for your light being beyond your own personal gratification and timeline and family and bank accounts and community, but like the planet? And for some people, that's their children, like their single mom and their daughter is their cause. Like they were put here to circuit break ancestral trauma, to not repeat that lineage. That's part of what they incarnated here to do, to disrupt.
Mhm.
For me, and I also feel like for you too, one of my biggest causes, if not the biggest cause, is animals, the sentient
Mhm.
beings of this planet, which that
Yeah.
doesn't make me any money. Like, I don't dedicate, my calling is to help women. My creation is my businesses, but my cause is ensuring that the planet and the sentient beings of this planet are protected. And I do that through donating. I through that volunteering. One day I want to hopefully start my own organization or contribute to like a dog sanctuary, or, the Humane Society International is like my favorite community organization. So it just really like reframes and opens up the aperture of like what your mission is. And I think that's hard for people to potentially articulate and find. So my book provides a framework and points you to certain questions to bring you deeper into your unique mission. And
Mhm.
it's one of my favorite chapters. So thank you for asking about it.
To me, it stood out. I mean, they're all incredible, but that stood out because at the end of the day, we're all looking for this purpose, this mission,
Yes.
right? You could have all the money in the world, but if you can feel empty inside, right?
Right. Exactly. So
So
many
it's this
do.
mission, it's to be connected to something so much more.
Yeah.
And, that's how I've been living my life.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going and why I do what I do.
Yeah. I know.
It's so much more than me. It's
I
for
know.
this collective, it's for our soul, it's bigger. So I am honored to speak at your event. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. So if you buy a book, you get access to this experience with Danielle and I. So you just want to go to the lightworkbook.com. You buy one copy and you get a whole bunch of juicy bonuses and live group calls with me, a personal branding masterclass. You get a free sneak peek into the book. But then the pinnacle of it all is this live event that I'm doing with Danielle, Mike, and Koya.
Amazing.
Yeah, Koya Webb, who's incredible and talk about body
I
wellness,
just met such a sweetheart.
like true light sister,
Yeah, such a sweetheart.
truly. And the four of us are gathering on August 8, and it's 2024. So it's 888 if you add up 2024. So it's a very auspicious day. And we're going to be streaming live pretty much all day on the 8th, really walking you through breakdown of the book. But it's a portal that day. It's that whole sort of time during the summer just has a lot of galactic frequency coming in. And Danielle is speaking on future light because I really look at her as a galactic sister who's here for humanity, who's helping to wake the planet up. And, inner light will be Michael, really talking about connecting to spirit, the divine source. Koya is going to do outer light body, how we show up in the 3D and nourish ourselves in relationships and all the things. But I wanted Danielle to end it with future light because she has such a truly revolutionary message for humanity. And that's how the book ends. And so I want Danielle to take us home. And there's going to be
Let's go.
Let's go. It's going to be a really highly interactive experience. I don't want you to miss it. Put it on your calendar. Buy the book. It gets you a ticket. That's your access point. And join us together and activate your DNA with us. Become the light workers that you are.
So I'm honored, so honored beyond. I truly, like I said at your retreat, I did readings at her retreat, and I said, I am here for you.
You did.
This is your event. How can I assist you? And that's how I truly feel about this as well. And so I'm honored to speak. And yes, so I want everyone to know that when they get a book, let's just make sure they know they get access to this, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, they do. You get almost $3,000 worth of bonus material when you buy one copy of the book. If you go to thelightworkbook.com, it's easy to remember. And you get all these immediate juicy things, but then you get access to this event. And we'll be sending you emails with the link so that you can join us. It's going to be Danielle and Michael and Claire are actually going to be with me in person. So we're not like zooming
Yeah.
in from parts of the country. We're going to be physically together,
Yeah.
sharing from stage. Oh, this beautiful community driven global event. And you just don't want to miss it. And I will say this, since I know we're wrapping up, and thank you for having me on your show and to come into your community and speak. And I know your community is listening to this because they love you, but I'm just going to triple stamp. What an amazing human being you are. No, really, like you're powerful, you're brilliant, you're funny, you're talented, but your soul and your heart is so pure and so loving. And I just feel blessed to call you a friend. As I've gotten to know you, you're the real deal.
Thank you so
You're
much,
welcome. I mean
truly.
that from my heart.
Yeah. Thank you for seeing me. And I said that, and we had a session, and I truly felt like you could see me, and you can. And that's a testament to your light, your intuitive abilities, your access. And I looked at you. I mean, we've seen each other in person before, but I was like, girl, you're like a feline, like, I mean, you can see all that in you. It's powerful that like the galactic realm is like sitting on you.
Thank you.
So thank you for seeing that. I really appreciate that and saying that. Where can people reach you? Where can they find you? Where are all the places?
I'm just jessicazweig.com. That's my website. Come find me. You can learn all about my coaching programs. I've got my podcast, The Spiritual Hustler, is there. And Instagram. I spend most of my time on social media on that channel, whether I like it or not. No, I love it. Actually, I have a great community there. I
Yeah.
love my people. I feel like you attract what you are. I mean, there'll be trolls. Anyone's putting themselves out there authentically. I don't have too many of them, but my point is my community is my gem in my world.
Yeah.
And it's me. I don't have anyone manage my account. Like I'm there and I'm very responsive. So if you want to DM me, if you want to, share your story, if you get the book and it impacts you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you no matter what. And yeah, that's that's where you find me. I'm really easy to find.
Beautiful. Thank you. I want to end with this, that because we both went to Egypt, and I know that, first of all, there's a lot of people watching this and they're like, oh, just two girls go to Egypt and blah, blah, blah. I've heard that a lot before when I talk about Egypt. So I just want to address that because I think it's really important. I want to let people know, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. So I actually did my DNA, and my DNA said Egyptian, which I believe that all of us came through there.
Oh, thank you.
So I just want to let people know that it is powerful.
Yeah.
Your words are powerful. What you channeled from your experience there is very authentic and very true. And I really hope that everyone has that experience to go there when the time is right.
Yeah.
And it's a portal, just like I feel like today was a portal in a beautiful way. So I just want to wrap up with that portal. And yeah, if you just have any final thoughts on Egypt, because it really created this.
It did. It did. The last thing I guess I'll share is reflected in my last day there. I started with the Sphinx and we ended in the Great Pyramid. And you crawl up this tiny little like ladder crazy portal thing into this king's chamber where it's dark, it's musty, it smells. It's like you can feel the ancient energy there. And it was dark. There was no light. And I sobbed in the king's chamber to the level of tears I've never ever cried. And the feeling and why I cried, and from what I have studied and what I understand, is the Great Pyramid is really this sort of direct line to the galactic stargates and cosmos. And the reason for my tears was I felt so deeply, completely enveloped in love, like universal love.
Yeah.
And the message was like, Jessica, you are always this loved. This is always available to you. And I think that it's so easy to forget that in our day-to-day human experience. And I say this in my book, like I found myself at the end of this trip and I actually didn't find light. It was dark, but there was love. And I just think that's really what we're on a mission here for.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your light, and thank you for sharing your heart.
Thank you for having me. I love you. This was beautiful.